A miracle has unfolded in the heart of the Holy Land. Jerusalem, the city revered by billions, where ancient prophecies and modern faith converge. This sacred ground, a beacon of divine history, has become the epicenter of an earth-shattering event that is sending shockwaves around the globe. Jesus Christ, the Messiah long awaited, has appeared in Jerusalem. His presence, after centuries of anticipation, is nothing short of miraculous. The world stands in awe, trembling at the magnitude of this divine occurrence. His messages, piercing and profound, have left believers and skeptics alike utterly astounded. My brothers and sisters, prepare yourselves, for what you are about to hear will challenge your very understanding of faith and destiny. And now, let's begin. Jerusalem, a city steeped in unparalleled historical and spiritual significance, stands as a beacon of divine prophecy, the epicenter of sacred encounters, and the enduring symbol of God's covenant with His people. This ancient city, cradled in the rugged hills of Judea, is no mere collection of stone and mortar. It is the heartbeat of biblical history, a city where heaven and earth have met in moments of profound spiritual consequence. From the time of Abraham to the present day, Jerusalem has been a city chosen by God, a city where His presence has been uniquely manifested and where His redemptive plan for humanity has unfolded through the ages. The Bible, God's infallible word, speaks of Jerusalem with a reverence reserved for no other city. It is here that King David, the man after God's own heart, established the capital of Israel, making Jerusalem not only the political center of his kingdom, but also the spiritual heart of the nation. The selection of Jerusalem was not a matter of human preference, but divine decree. The city was chosen by God to be the site of the temple, the sacred dwelling place of His name, where sacrifices were offered, prayers ascended, and the Shekinah glory of God was visibly present. The temple, first built by Solomon with exquisite craftsmanship and unparalleled splendor, was a physical manifestation of the covenant relationship between God and His people. It was here that the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's presence and promise, rested in the Holy of Holies, accessible only to the high priest and only once a year, on the Day of Atonement, Jerusalem's future, as revealed in the Bible, is one of both hope and judgment. The city that has been the focal point of God's redemptive work will also be the center of end-time events. The book of Revelation speaks of a new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. This new Jerusalem will be the eternal dwelling place of God with His people, where there will be no more death, mourning, crying, or pain, for the old order of things will have passed away. The city's gates will never be shut, for there will be no night there, and the nations will walk by its light, bringing their glory and honor into it. This vision of Jerusalem is the culmination of God's promises, the fulfillment of His plan to dwell among His people forever. However, before this glorious future is realized, Jerusalem will face times of great tribulation. Jesus Himself warned that Jerusalem would be surrounded by armies and that there would be great distress in the land and wrath against this people. The city that has seen so much glory and so much sorrow will once again be the focal point of divine judgment. Yet even in the midst of this, there is hope, for the Lord will defend Jerusalem and fight against the nations that attack it. Zechariah prophesied that the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as He fights on a day of battle. And on that day, His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. This divine intervention will culminate in the return of Jesus Christ, who will establish His kingdom and reign from Jerusalem, fulfilling the promises made to David that his descendants would sit on the throne forever. In the light of this biblical narrative, Jerusalem is not just a city. It is a symbol of God's faithfulness, a testimony to His sovereignty, and a reminder of His ultimate plan for redemption. The city has been the backdrop for God's dealings with humanity throughout history and will continue to play a central role in the unfolding of His divine plan. For believers, Jerusalem holds a special place in their hearts, not just as a historical site, but as a tangible connection to their faith. It is a city that reminds them of the past, where God's mighty acts were performed, of the present, where His Spirit is at work in the world, and of the future, where His promises will be fulfilled. Jerusalem's significance in the Bible is unparalleled. It is a city chosen by God, where His presence has dwelt, where His Son was crucified and rose again, and where He will return to reign as King. The city's history, its present reality, and its prophetic future all point to the central role it plays in God's redemptive plan. As believers, we look to Jerusalem not only as a physical place, but as a symbol of our faith and hope, a city where God's promises have been and will be fulfilled. Jerusalem, the city of God, is indeed the epicenter of biblical history and the focal point of divine prophecy, a city that will forever stand as a testimony to God's unchanging faithfulness. Recently, Jerusalem became the focus of the world again with a shocking event. In the heart of Jerusalem, a city already steeped in divine mystery and historical significance, an extraordinary celestial event unfolded that would leave its witnesses in a state of profound shock and awe. This was no ordinary occurrence. It was an event that transcended the boundaries of the natural world, captivating the minds and spirits of all who beheld it. As dusk descended upon the ancient city, the skies over Jerusalem began to shimmer with an otherworldly light, unlike anything ever seen before. This luminous phenomenon seemed to pulse with a life of its own, casting a radiant glow that bathed the city in a surreal twilight. A light so intense and pure that it seemed to pierce the very souls of those who gazed upon it. People from all walks of life, whether they were pilgrims, residents, or visitors, were drawn irresistibly to the source of this unearthly illumination, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear, reverence, and a deep, inexplicable anticipation. As the crowd gathered, their eyes fixed on the heavens, a hush fell over Jerusalem, a silence so profound that it felt as though time itself had come to a standstill. Then, without warning, the light coalesced into a singular blinding flash that momentarily obscured the stars and planets, rendering the sky a canvas of pure white brilliance. Out of this luminous abyss, a figure began to materialize, not gradually, but with a suddenness that took the breath away from all who watched. It was the unmistakable form of a man, yet one who radiated a power and majesty that defied human comprehension. The figure hovered above the city, suspended in the air, and as the light began to diminish slightly, the awestruck crowd could discern the features of the apparition. It was Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, appearing in a manner that defied all known laws of physics and nature. The sight of Jesus, his presence so unmistakable and overwhelming, caused a wave of emotions to ripple through the crowd. Some fell to their knees in worship, tears streaming down their faces as they were overcome by the sheer holiness of the moment. Others stood rooted to the spot, unable to move, their bodies trembling with a mixture of terror and reverence. A few, overwhelmed by the spectacle, cried out in fear, their voices echoing off the ancient stones of Jerusalem as they grappled with the reality of what they were witnessing. Yet, despite the variety of reactions, there was a common thread that united all those present, a deep, soul-shaking recognition that they were in the presence of the divine, that they were witnessing an event of cosmic significance, one that would forever alter the course of history. As Jesus stood there, suspended above the city, his countenance shone with a light that was not of this world. His face was serene, yet it carried the weight of an eternal authority that brooked no defiance. His eyes, filled with a boundless love yet tempered with a piercing clarity, seemed to look deep into the hearts of all who beheld him, revealing the hidden depths of their souls. His garments, shimmering with the brightness of the sun, fluttered gently in an invisible breeze, adding to the ethereal nature of his appearance. But it was not just his appearance that held the crowd in thrall. It was the overwhelming sense of his presence, a presence that seemed to fill not just the physical space around him, but the very air, the very atmosphere, with an energy that was palpable, almost tangible. A great trembling seized the crowd, as if the very earth beneath them was responding to the authority of the one who spoke. Many in the crowd began to cry out in worship, their voices mingling with tears of joy and repentance. Others, overwhelmed by the presence of the divine, could only bow their heads in silent reverence, their hearts too full for words. The atmosphere was charged with an electric sense of anticipation, as though the very fabric of reality was being stretched to accommodate the magnitude of what was occurring. It was clear to all present that this was no mere vision, no ordinary apparition, but a moment of profound spiritual significance, a moment where the divine had intersected with the mortal in a way that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. And then, as suddenly as he had appeared, Jesus began to ascend, his form gradually becoming more luminous, more ethereal, until he was once again enveloped in the same blinding light from which he had emerged. The light began to lift him higher and higher until he was but a radiant point in the sky, a brilliant star shining brighter than all the others. And then, with one final flash of light, he was gone, leaving the crowd staring up at the heavens, their hearts and minds forever changed by what they had witnessed. The aftermath of this extraordinary event was nothing short of seismic. News of the appearance spread like wildfire throughout Jerusalem and beyond, as those who had witnessed it firsthand struggled to find words to describe what they had seen. The city, already a place of deep religious significance, was now charged with an even greater sense of expectancy, as people from all corners of the world began to flock to Jerusalem, hoping to catch a glimpse of the place where heaven had touched earth. Scholars, theologians, and religious leaders from every tradition gathered to discuss the implications of what had happened, each bringing their interpretations, their hopes, and their fears to the table. For believers, this event was a confirmation of their faith, a divine affirmation that the prophecies, a sign of God's favor, and a reminder of the spiritual journey every believer must undertake. For Muslims, Jerusalem is a city of hope, a place where the divine and the human meet in a way that is both tangible and transcendent. The hope that Jerusalem represents is not just a matter of religious belief. It is also a hope for peace and reconciliation in a city that has seen too much bloodshed and division. The enduring conflicts over Jerusalem's holy sites, while deeply rooted in history and theology, also point to the possibility of a future where these sites become places of peace and mutual respect rather than points of contention. The vision of Jerusalem as a city of peace, where people of all faiths can worship freely without fear, is a vision that transcends the boundaries of religion and politics. It speaks to the deepest aspirations of humanity, calling us to look beyond our differences and see in each other the image of the divine. The challenge of Jerusalem's religious pluralism is to find a way to honor and respect the city's diverse religious traditions while fostering a spirit of unity and common purpose. This is not an easy task, given the deep historical wounds and ongoing political conflicts that continue to divide the city. However, it is a task that must be undertaken if Jerusalem is to fulfill its role as a symbol of hope and faith for all of humanity. Jerusalem's religious pluralism, with its attendant historical tensions, presents both a challenge and an opportunity. The city's complex religious landscape, marked by conflict and division, also offers a vision of hope. A hope rooted in the biblical narrative of divine promise and in the shared aspirations of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Jerusalem, with its ancient stones and sacred sites, remains a place where the human spirit reaches out to the divine, a place where the hope for peace and reconciliation continues to inspire and challenge us all. The city's future, like its past, will be shaped by the choices we make, by our willingness to embrace its religious diversity, and by our commitment to preserving its sacred heritage for future generations. As we look to Jerusalem, let us see in its ancient walls not just the scars of conflict, but the enduring hope of a world where faith, peace, and justice can truly reign. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in the next videos.